Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Painting with Picasso's Grapevine. My name is Leanna Hahn, and I will be your host and teacher for today. Today we're going to work on this gorgeous pumpkin. Kind of looking ahead and thinking about fall and all those cool orange and nice warm colors. So we're going to take you through some step-by-step process on how to complete this gorgeous painting. We're going to focus on our highlighting and our lowlights here, kind of creating a three-dimensional effect. Kind of give you some tips on how to achieve a item that is closer to you, that has some bumps, some lumps, some different dimensions. So we'll kind of take you through step by step. But before we start, we always start off with a little check on our inventory. For today, we're going to have a number 12 very large filbert. We have a number 6, and then we have a number 1 filbert as well. And today we'll also use, and you'll have this as a choice, you don't have to, but we're going to be using a number 1 flat. As always, we use acrylic paints, and our supplies consist of a dab rag to keep your paints nice and dry, and then a cup of water for washing them off. We've got quite a few colors today in our painting, so we're going to be using dioxazine purple, brilliant magenta. We have naphthalene red, cad orange, cad yellow, white, black, burnt umber, and some cad green. So as we start, we always kind of take a step back and assess what are we starting with? Where do we start? Where do we go next? So always, in general, I start with the background. So we get that nice, beautiful color on in the back. And then what we'll do is we're going to bring in some of our outlines here for the pumpkin. Just decide where's that pumpkin going to go. Then we're going to go ahead, get it colored in, get that first base coat on, and then work on bringing in our highlights and our lowlights to give it that dimension. So to do that, we're going to start with a blank canvas. And this is a 16 by 20 blank canvas. To kick it off, we're going to start with our number 6 filbert. Go ahead, get that wet. Just dab it off. Make sure they don't have any water dripping down your canvas. And we're going to use orange just to define in general where our pumpkin is going to go. So we're not worried about making very solid lines, just very nice light brush strokes. So we're going to do a quick little oval for where the top of the pumpkin is. We're going to do a very nice, generous outline of the pumpkin. And then we're going to come in and we're going to add some of those bumps that we saw. So just kind of saying, all right, back there is where the pumpkin really kind of comes around and it's oval. So that's our general outline. You would do the same thing for the small pumpkin. We can kind of say, all right, here's our oval, our stem. Kind of do just a nice little sweep just to say, all right, that's where the side of the pumpkin's going to go. And then we'll fill in where those little bumps are, just to give you some idea where to place your paint. And that's really all we're doing right now, is just deciding where is the outline of this pumpkin so you can define where you're going to put your background. So next we're going to move into putting our background in. We're going to use a number 12. Go ahead, get that dabbed in. And we're going to use 3 color combinations for this. We're going to use the pink and the purple and a little bit of white. Now, as you mix on your palette here, go ahead, grab some of that white in. And people ask, why do you use white? And quite frankly, pinks and purples are very translucent. So if you were to put just purple, you're going to see right there, you can see how you can see right through to the canvas and the dimpling. So that's why we add white into it. We go ahead, put a layer of that on the canvas, let that dry, and then come on top of it with the darker, deeper color. And that's how you achieve a nice deep color with some of these very translucent paints. So we'll go ahead and kind of get some movement going. Our goal here is really just to create a nice fluid background. We're not too worried about what color combination we have, what colors of pinks and purples. We're just looking for something that's in the purple hue. So I'm just moving my paintbrush around. Now, where we have placed the outline of our pumpkin, we're just going to come close, right to the edge. And it's okay if we go over a little bit, because we're going to go in with orange and really define the inside of the pumpkin. Right now, we're just getting the outside or the background laid out. Remember, if your paints are not covering, go ahead, grab some white. That just means you need a little bit more white. Once you get your coverage on very nice, you're happy with your coverage, then you can come back and add a deeper shade of purple. And really whatever shade of purple you're looking for. Now you'll notice too, this direction of my strokes, I'm kind of keeping it oval, kind of to define, keeping the same image of how this pumpkin is laid out in the front, kind of moving my strokes back and forth in an arced motion. I find that complements because we have a very circular item up in front in the foreground. Generally, you'll see a lot if I do landscapes, I'll go ahead and do much more back and forth, straight across, but we've got a very oval item. So this kind of just complements the shape of the pumpkin. Now, as always, I'm not going to complete the whole painting. I'm going to work on the techniques for the very large painting so you can see it. You'll apply those same techniques because they're exactly the same to the smaller pumpkin. And here's a great item too, just to keep in mind. Pumpkin is an awesome topic to go ahead and paint just because if yours is a little bit rounder, a little bit fatter, a little bit longer, the reality is the pumpkins really are quite diverse in their shape. So you've got a lot of forgiveness. You can really have a lot of mistakes and perhaps it not come out as originally as you, closer to the original thought, but it still looks awesome just because pumpkins grow very odd. And that's what's great about drawing and painting objects of nature. My tree may look like a tree, but it doesn't have to look like your tree, and every tree looks different. Now, as you get closer to your painting, your pumpkin in the center, if you find you need to get a smaller brush, go ahead and switch back over to that number 12, or excuse me, that number 6 medium filbert, and I'll let you get a little closer. Now, to prepare for the next step, I went ahead and I have already did the same exact process, allowed it to dry so we can continue on. Generally, acrylic paints dry very fast, so usually about 6 to 7 minutes, you're ready to go to the next step. And for that same reason, if you have any stops and starts, if you have any streaks in your painting, you have to correct them quickly before your paint dries. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of going over, now that I got some nice coverage, I'm going over in very broad strokes, and I'm letting my paintbrush fall off the canvas. That way I don't have that stop and start. You don't see it or stop it in the middle. We allow it to continue off. All right. So to continue on to the next step, we're going to go ahead and switch over to the other canvas that I've prepared. And we'll keep on moving. Again, about 6-7 minutes on that canvas is just about all you need. If you find that it is too wet, go ahead, take a hairdryer to it. That'll help you kind of speed it up. Good old-fashioned another paper plate, just waving it will do just fine as well. So now we're going to go ahead and start working on the inside of our pumpkin. Let's go ahead and wash off our number 12 brush. We're still going to continue using that. Dab it off in your dab rag. Make sure you have no water dripping down, because again, once you have already started paint on the canvas, water dripping down will actually peel off all that beautiful work that you've done. Now, the best way to fix it is to allow it to dry first, put some white paint over it, allow the white paint to dry, and then go ahead back over on your original color. White is really a great bondo for paint. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in with my orange. And we're just going to go ahead and fill in the nice outline of this pumpkin. Just get kind of a nice base coat on. And I'm keeping my strokes going, again, in the same direction as what the pumpkin is formed. So you want your strokes to kind of follow the crevices, follow the little humps each side of the pumpkin. Go ahead and push them close to the purple. Try to stay out of the purple, but it's okay if you go in just a little bit because we are going to do a quick little outline at the end. And if you are finding that your orange is getting a little translucent, kind of like the purple and the pink, go ahead and mix a little bit of yellow with it and use the same process. Get those strokes moving on. If you find that you have put too much yellow, then go back over it with the orange. The yellow acts like a white. It also assists the paint to be a little bit more solid, a little less translucent. Now again, I'm using a number 12 filbert just to get some nice quick coverage, very large strokes. You don't have to if you feel comfortable with a smaller brush, go right ahead. I always recommend experimenting with your different brushes. It really helps to get you more comfortable in understanding what kind of effect you can achieve with each kind of brush. I enjoy the filberts because I do a lot of very broad strokes, and this doesn't create harsh lines. I'm looking for a nice broad blended line, and that's why I choose this. And again, I'm not going to worry about this little pumpkin at the bottom. It's going to be completed the same way with the same strokes, just in a smaller little area of your canvas. So we're just going to kind of skip right over that. There you go. Got some outlines going there. And the rest of this should go very quickly. And don't forget, when you're at home, take a step back, look at your painting, make sure things are proportional. Take the opportunity to take a straight-on look, straight view of it. Do you want to change anything? Do you want to move anything? Of course, I'm painting from the side, so hopefully I'm doing a pretty decent job. Now you'll notice too, I've got a little bit more orange around the edges, and I'm allowing my paints to get a little bit more closer to the yellow. I'm putting a little bit more yellow into the center. And you do this because the light, I'm making the assumption, that's where you as the artist need to decide, where is that light going to shine? I always use the flashlight approach to describe it. If you had a flashlight and you were flashing that light onto your canvas, where would the light fall and where would the darkness fall? Where would the shadows fall? So I'm going to emphasize that this center section of the pumpkin is closest to me, and that's where the light is. So that's where I'm going to put most of my lighter color, my yellow, and then I'm allowing the darker orange to be around the edge, because that's where the shadow is going to fall. And a lot of this is just practicing with your blending techniques, playing with the volume and the amount of paint you're going to put onto your canvas. Feel free to use water if your paints are getting a little thick. That will help liquefy. It's a nice medium, and it'll move the paint along the canvas a lot quicker. And you won't see any of that dimpling. And the dimpling really is where you see all of the texture of the canvas showing through to your paints. All right. So we've got some wonderful coverage here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and make some last darker adjustments. Go ahead, place some orange right around the sides here so you can see the difference more visually. Try not to have stark lines, so try and blend it as it gets more closer. You want a gradient transition. And for the bottom, what we're going to do is to show a little bit more differential. I'm grabbing a little bit of this red, and I'm going to come up. Doing the same arc, using that same arced approach, starting from the center, kind of moving up. If you find you have put too much red, just grab in some orange and mix in with it. And you'll notice I'm kind of taking it up around where I think I'm going to make my outline of each of the bumps. So I'm bringing it up, grabbing some more orange, helping it blend in with that red and bringing this up the pumpkin. And you'll notice it has a nice deep contrast, so very nice. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and define very distinctly where each one of those little humps are. We're going to do that with some brown with our burnt umber. To do that, I am grabbing my very tiny #1 filbert. Grab a little water on this. Now you at home would like to take the opportunity to let this dry and then move on to that. That would be the best approach. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and do this wet on wet. It may get a little streaky, it may not be very dark, but you get kind of the idea. So we're going to start with the center, and we're going to go, all right, here is the center of our pumpkin. And then we're going to kind of move out. We're going to move in. And you could do either. You could start from the top, you could start from the bottom. Truly just is your personal preference. And just kind of making very wispy. And it's okay if your paint doesn't continue all the way down. You want it light. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and define that last outline, the outside of the pumpkin. Kind of moving that up. Once this dries, you can come back around and make more solid lines. I'm just going to go ahead and get those first lines out there. You'll notice too, right around the edge here, this is where your paint is drying. To make your paints move a little bit more fluidly, go ahead, add some water to your paints right on your palette. That will help liquefy it and it'll help it move more fluidly across. So we're going to add one more here. Very nice. And then the same thing on this side. We'll start on the outside, kind of move up. And then, there you go. Okay. Now, the best thing to really help show that top side where the light is and the depth is really using a lot of your white and your yellow in this particular painting. So what we're going to do is we're going to move back to that #6 filbert. Go ahead and dab that off. Grab a little bit of your white, mix in some yellow. Once it's a very, very light, pale, pale yellow. And we're going to come in and we're going to say, here is the lightest part of the pumpkin, because that's where the light is falling. And you'll notice too, I'm using the side of my brush. I'm not using a lot of pressure on my brush. Just kind of lightly adding it on. And then the same thing here. We're going to come across and do some really quick sweeps right at the top. Again, you would let your paint dry before you go ahead and do this. I'm just showing you kind of a technique. There you go. Doing the same thing, bringing it as close to the center as possible, keeping it as close to the edge of the top of your little humps. And so the question comes up, how far down do you bring it? I'm going to keep it fairly close to the top. If I start to bring any of it down, I'm going to put more of a yellow into it to bring it down and less of the white. And I would not bring it down too much further than, I'm going to say, about half. Let those bottom strokes kind of come no more than about halfway down your pumpkin. And then for the same reason, if you feel like you're not showing enough difference as far as a highlight and a low light, feel free to come back in, add some more of the red. That will really emphasize the two different colors and the depth. Now that you see where your lines are more distinctly, go ahead, grab some of that. Same process. If you don't like how much you have in there, grab some orange on top of it, lighten it up. There you go. All right, almost done here, folks. So the last thing I'm going to show you is just how to do those nice squirrely little lines that are the edge of the leaves kind of growing out. We're going to go grab our very flat #1 filbert. This is a wonderful, wonderful paintbrush to use for drawing lines because it is very tight. I'm grabbing a little bit of yellow and mixing it in. And I'm going to start here at the center and just kind of work my way out. Let them kind of play and dangle. Now you're going to do these a couple times. You're going to start out by getting at least the definition on. Again, you would wait till your pumpkin is dry and you won't have any blending taking place. But we're going to get the first layer on. I need to let it dry. Then you come in, once it's dry, you would add some white to it. And the same motion, and don't be intimidated to make sure that they are trying to be exactly alike. If they're off slightly, that's very cute. This is a very whimsical, lighthearted, beautiful pumpkin, fun for the fall, gorgeous for your kitchen, and just let it kind of flow. And of course, last but not least, we'll go ahead and fill in the top of the pumpkin here. This is just using burnt umber. You're going to be using just a very quick round motion. Bring that down. Allow this to dry. Go in with a second coat. You can make it a little bit more defined then. You see I've got some dimpling coming through. You want to go ahead, let that dry. Bring it in. Bring it down. And just finish up the very top. Now, go ahead and add a little bit of yellow on the top, just to show that there's the light. You can kind of come in with some white if you'd like to. And for that very small pumpkin, go ahead and let the large one dry and do the exact same technique on the bottom, and you'll have two very beautiful pumpkins. I hope we've taken some of the scary out of painting or trying something at home and you found this very enjoyable. If you have any other questions or would like to learn more about how to do a beautiful painting like this, send an email to info@picassosgrapevine.com. Thank you for joining us.